You've done everything right, or at least everything they told you to do. You texted back at the perfect time. You were fun, you were confident, you kept it light. You even threw in that playful tease you saw in a video somewhere, and yet nothing. She responds, sure, but it's flat, polite, like she's answering an email from HR. So you start wondering, is it me? Is it her? Did I say something wrong? Here's what nobody's telling you. It's not what you said. It's what you communicated without saying a word. And by the time you finish this video, you'll know exactly what signal you've been sending that's killing attraction before it even gets a chance to breathe. I spent months going down a rabbit hole on this, studying behavioral psychology, pulling apart conversations, watching patterns repeat in real interactions. And what I found wasn't what I expected. In fact, it completely flipped how I understood attraction. But I'll share one particular story with you soon, about a guy I know, smart, good looking, the kind of guy who should not be struggling, and what happened when he finally figured out what he'd been doing wrong. But that story comes a little later, and trust me, you'll see yourself in it. But first, if this channel has ever given you something worth thinking about, hit subscribe. Not for me, but because this topic goes deep, and you're gonna want the next one too. Now, let's talk about the real problem. Think about the last time you were talking to a woman you were genuinely interested in. Really picture it. Where were you? What were you saying? And more importantly, what were you hoping she'd do? Somewhere in that interaction, you were probably trying to get her to like you. Maybe you were being extra agreeable. Maybe you jumped to answer her questions fast, kept the conversation moving, made sure there were no awkward silences. You were working for it. And that's exactly the problem. Robert Cialdini, the psychologist behind Influence, one of the most studied books in behavioral science, spent years documenting how people assign value. One of his core findings: we want what's harder to get, not because we're irrational, because difficulty signals worth. When something comes easy, the brain quietly files it as low value. It doesn't even decide to, it just does. So when you rush to fill every silence, when you agree with everything she says, when you validate her jokes a little too fast, you're not being charming, you're being easy. And the brain she's running on registers that immediately. She doesn't flirt back because the brain doesn't bother chasing what's already caught. But here's what makes this painful. You probably can't even feel yourself doing it. There's a version of this mistake that almost every guy makes, and it lives in the smallest moments. She mentions she's from somewhere. You immediately say you love that place. She talks about a show. You've seen it. You loved it too. How wild is that? She cracks a joke. You laugh. Maybe a little too hard, a little too fast. None of those things are wrong on their own, but string them together and watch what happens. In 60 seconds, you've told her everything. You're interested, you're available, you approve of her. The score is 3-0 and the game just started. So now what does she have to do? Nothing. There's no tension, no chase, nothing to figure out. And people, not just women, people lose interest in puzzles they've already solved. The problem isn't that you're nice. The problem is that you handed her the answer before she even asked the question. By the way, if you actually want to know what's going on in her head when this happens, and more importantly, how to read what she really wants versus what she's performing, I wrote something specifically about that. It's called The Truth Detector. First link in the description. It gets into the stuff that takes way too long to cover in a single video. But back to this. There's a guy I know, we'll call him Marcus. Marcus is the kind of guy who walks into a room and people notice. Tall, well-dressed, works hard, has his life together in most of the ways that matter. And yet, every time he got close to a woman he actually liked, the same thing happened. Things would start well. She'd seem interested. Then slowly, like a candle in a draft, it would just go out. She'd get distant. Responses got shorter. Plans kept falling through. He thought it was bad luck. Then he thought it was timing. Then he started wondering if something was just fundamentally wrong with him. So one night he showed me a conversation and I saw it immediately. Every time she went slightly cold, even just a one-word reply, Marcus panicked. Not outwardly, but in the messages. He'd send a follow-up, ask a question, make a joke to lighten things up. Fill the space. He was so afraid of losing her interest that he kept reaching out, kept pouring in more effort, kept trying to relight the candle by blowing harder on it. But that's not how candles work. The more he chased the feeling of her being interested, the less interested she became. Because every reach told her the same thing. I need your approval to feel okay. And that signal, that quiet, invisible signal, is the single most attractive killing thing a man can broadcast. It's not about playing games. It's about something deep deeper than that. Psychologists call it attachment anxiety. It's what happens when your emotional state becomes dependent on how someone else is responding to you. And research into adult attachment, work built on decades of study, originally developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by researchers like Dr. Amir Levine in his book Attached, shows that anxious attachment doesn't just feel bad. It changes your behavior in ways you can't fully control. You become hyper-focused on signals. You over-interpret silences. You start optimizing every message for her reaction instead of just being yourself. And women feel that, not consciously. They won't tell you, you seem anxious. They'll just feel less drawn in. They'll feel a subtle pressure that they can't name, and they'll pull back from it instinctively. So Marcus wasn't unlucky. He wasn't ugly or boring or broken. He was running on anxiety instead of confidence, and it was leaking out of every message he sent. The shift wasn't complicated, but it required him to do something that felt completely wrong at first. He had to stop caring so much about whether she responded. Now, before you roll your eyes, this isn't just don't care, bro. That's the lazy version of this idea, and it doesn't work. You can't fake detachment. Women are extraordinarily good at reading inauthenticity. If you're pretending not to care while secretly refreshing your phone every 4 minutes, she'll feel that too. The performance is just as unattractive as the anxiety. What Marcus had to build was something real, a life full enough and a sense of self strong enough that any one woman's response genuinely didn't make or break his day. That sounds like self-help fluff. So let me make it concrete. When Marcus stopped treating her attention like oxygen, when he started responding slower, ending conversations first, not explaining himself, not jumping to fill silence, something changed. Not because he followed a script, but because his behavior finally matched the energy of a man who had options. And option energy is magnetic. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it. She started reaching out more, started being more playful, started doing the work. Nothing about him changed externally. Same guy, same face, same job. The only thing that changed was what he stopped doing. Here's the part that will sting a little. Most guys think the solution to a woman not flirting back is to do more, be funnier, be more interesting, plan a better date, send a better opener, and all of that misses the point entirely, because she's not withholding flirtation because you haven't done enough. She's withholding it because you've already done too much. You've already shown your hand. You've already answered the question she hadn't finished asking yet. Think about the last time someone was incredibly into you, maybe someone you weren't that into. Remember how that felt? There was zero tension, no butterflies, no reason to try. Their enthusiasm, however genuine, actually pushed you further away. You are that person to her right now. And the fix isn't a new tactic or a better line. The real fix is understanding what you've been communicating at the level beneath words and changing that first. There's a full breakdown of how to actually read these dynamics, including when she's genuinely interested but holding back versus when she's checked out completely in the truth detector. It's the difference between fixing something worth fixing and wasting time on something that's already done. Links in the description if you want to go deeper on that. So let's talk about what actually changes things. Not tips, not lines, the actual shift. There's a concept in psychology called self-validation. It's simple on the surface. It means your sense of worth comes from inside, not from how people react to you. But living it is a different thing entirely, because most of us were never taught this. We were taught to perform, get good grades, get approval, be funny, get laughs, be nice, get liked. The whole system is built on external feedback. So by the time you're an adult trying to attract someone, you're running the same loop. Perform, wait for reaction, adjust based on result. And that loop is visible. It radiates off you. She can feel it in the way you phrase questions, in the way you laugh slightly too fast, in the way you check your phone after sending a message. The men who consistently attract women aren't necessarily better looking or funnier or richer. They just stopped needing the reaction, not because they're cold or detached, but because they're genuinely okay either way. She responds enthusiastically? Great. She goes quiet? Also fine. That evenness, that steadiness, it reads as confidence at a level that no amount of gym selfies or witty openers can fake. So how do you actually build that? Here's the first thing. Stop rewarding inconsistency. When she goes cold and you chase, you just taught her something. You taught her that pulling away gets her more of your attention. So she'll do it again. Not necessarily on purpose. It's just the pattern you reinforced. But when she goes cold and you stay steady, quickly. When you don't panic, don't flood the conversation, don't perform harder, you break that loop. Now she's the one wondering. Now the silence has weight on her side. Now she's the one reaching back in. This isn't manipulation, it's just not rewarding behavior that doesn't work for you. There's a difference. The second thing is harder. You have to actually build a life you're not trying to escape from. A lot of guys, and I mean a lot, are pouring intensity into romantic pursuit because everything else feels kind of empty. The job is fine, but not exciting. The friendships are okay, but surface level. The goals exist, but feel distant. So she becomes the main event, the place where all the emotional energy goes. And that pressure is suffocating to be around. When your life is genuinely full, when you have work that matters to you, people who fill you up, things you're building, you stop treating a woman's attention like a lifeline. And paradoxically, that's when you become someone worth chasing. Now here's the thing most videos won't tell you. Some of what you're experiencing isn't about your behavior at all. Sometimes she's genuinely not interested, and no amount of calibration changes that. Sometimes she's interested but scared. Sometimes she's playing a game she learned from her own past, and the ability to tell the difference, to actually read what's real versus what's performance, that's where most guys are completely blind. After breaking down hundreds of real interactions, the pattern becomes clear. The guys who struggle most aren't the ones who say the wrong things. They're the ones who can't read the room accurately. They either miss real interest because they're too in their heads, or they chase manufactured signals because they want it to be real. Both errors cost you time. Both errors cost you confidence. Both keep you stuck. Reading people accurately is a skill, and it's learnable. That's exactly what the truth detector is built around. Knowing what she really wants, whether she's using you, and when she's just running plays. It won't turn you into a mind reader, but it will make you a lot harder to fool. First link in the description. Let's bring it back to the beginning. She's not withholding flirtation to punish you. She's not doing it consciously at all. The chemistry is either there or it isn't. And chemistry requires tension, and tension requires uncertainty, and uncertainty requires that you stop being so readable. The guy she flirts back with isn't necessarily the best guy in the room. He's the one she can't fully figure out yet. The one who seems genuinely unbothered. The one who makes her feel like she has to earn something. Not because he's playing hard to get, but because he actually has standards. Because he's actually selective. Because his attention means something. Because it isn't everywhere at once. That's what you're building toward. Not a character, not a role, just a version of yourself that isn't running on her approval. Marcus eventually got there. Took him a few months of genuinely uncomfortable honesty about why he'd been so anxious in the first place. But when he stopped leading with need, everything shifted. Not just with women, with how he carried himself in general. That's the thing nobody warns you about. Fix this one pattern and it bleeds into everything else. You don't become attractive by doing more. You become attractive by needing less. That's it. That's the whole thing. I'll see you in my next video.